Okay.
Because we are live.
Okay. Welcome back to episode 2, the second live episode to celebrate year 1. Before we get started today, I want to take a moment to mention TRT treatment and Prime Performance. Prime Performance offers TRT treatment, which is more than just a boost to your masculinity or your drive or your femininity in some cases. What it does, moreover than just that, is it helps balance your mood, create patience, and utilize parts of your neurological system that may have dwindled over the years as we age. So TRT is something that you should definitely look into if you have trouble staying regulated during the day, being patient with your children, or just any sort of modality that you want to take back your life the way it used to be. So thank you to Prime Performance. Today I have my second guest that was ever on the show, Miss Kira Andersen, and we are revisiting almost a year to date from the last time we sat down in the club next door there before we had any of these offices or studios or anything like that. Now, since then, you've done several shows and radio things, but I'd like to take a moment for those who may not have seen our past episodes or your show, for you to describe who you are and just a brief synopsis of why you started your journey and a little bit about your story before we go into what the last years looked like for you.
Sure. Yeah. And thank you for having me on.
Yes.
Gosh, Corey, where do I start? Who am I? Well, I'm a mom of 3 children.
Mhm.
I have an 8, a 6, and a 4-year-old. I am a cancer widow, which is a big part of my story and a big part of why I started the podcast that I started. I'm a health and wellness coach, so I help people figure out how to eat and drink and be merry.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of cancer research fundraising. My late husband, passed away of pancreatic cancer over 2 years ago. And so since then, I've been doing a ton of fundraising. I say we, like me and my kids, which they've contributed to.
Yeah.
A ton of fundraising towards cancer research.
Well, and when you talk about your kids, like the contribution certainly isn't monetary with kids that age, but not only have they been a part of the fundraising you're doing, but they've had to be a part of your time being dedicated to those things too, right?
Yeah.
So there's sacrifices being made within that system that builds probably fortitude they don't understand yet.
Right.
So when we had first met, you were doing a regular piece on a radio show.
Yes.
At the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
On Thursdays. Your goal at the time, the way I understand it, was to get the message out about pancreatic cancer. And one of the things I took away from that portion of your story was that the gap between experimenting on mice versus human testing was $3 million.
Yeah,
right?
To get a phase 1 study going, it's about $3 million, which is exactly, it's where the drug goes from being successful in mice into 50 to 60 humans, a phase 1 study.
Okay. The reason that really grabbed my attention right away when we first talked about that is because when I think about just like the Susan Komen Foundation alone, about how much money they raise a year versus, unpopular opinion, how much they pay their people, right? It seems really lopsided that this much money has been raised for cancer research over the years, and there's this many test market items available, yet we're still battling this. It's almost as if the American medical system is set up to keep feeding you in. It's like an auto mechanic where, a recent story, a buddy of mine had this loaner car time and time again. I said, man, what's wrong with your car all the time? He goes, I have to keep taking it back because this and that. He goes, but I wouldn't use any other mechanic. They're the best in the business. I said, that's strange to me because if they're the best in the business, I don't feel like you drive a loaner car every other month. In the same sense, our medical system is in some ways regarded as the best in the world. Doctors from all over the world come to work here. Yet the way it's set up is truly for failure. It's almost as if like the food we put in our bodies, medications we do, oftentimes doctors don't ask you what your diet is, what your sleep schedule is.
Correct.
They say, what are your symptoms and how do I medicate you?
Correct.
Which I believe increases the types, numbers, and causes of cancer rather than decreases. There's not preventative modalities,
Right.
right? So what that really stood out in my brain, because I thought $3 million, wow, that is probably raised on a daily basis in some way or another for cancer research. And yet I don't feel like there's very much progress being made. Is that, especially as someone who's so into health and wellness, is that a point of contention for you as you try and navigate building up more funds for this thing? And what's your
Yeah.
belief system on it?
Yeah. So it's difficult coming from my perspective as a cancer widow because, like you said, there's so much that we eat and drink that contribute to cancer. We know our environment contributes to cancer. But it's difficult for me to think that from lab to human, it takes $3 million and there is so much money being raised. Why there aren't more clinical studies taking place that are successful. It's absolutely a point of contention for me because my husband passed away from it. And had the study that my husband was able to get into a study, he was the first patient to get in that study. Had that study been funded initially when it was brought to the FDA, when it was discovered, not only him, but so many other people would have benefited from that study. And so it's difficult because how funds are distributed, it's not like one doctor is given $3 million. Here's a $3 million check to run that study. It's a little bit here, a little bit there. The NIH, National Institute of Health, distributes money for cancer research, but they don't fund the whole thing. They might fund you just to get started. And then doctors have to spend all this time going to find funding to support the research. And they learn something, whether the research, is successful or not, they're learning something along the way. But it's difficult. It's a difficult pill to swallow because I know for a fact that if that study had been funded, not for a fact, but I think Kyle would still be here, maybe battling cancer still.
Sure.
But I think he'd still be here, and I think there'd be a lot of other people that would still be here.
Well, and that's because during that testing period, there was a significant remission time period, right? And then some of the other
cancer went from active to non-active. It worked
Right.
as it worked in the mice. It worked in my husband.
Yeah.
And so he ended up passing away of some side effects from the treatment. That had he gotten that treatment earlier, the likelihood is the side effects wouldn't have been so severe. And so that's where the issue is.
Right. Well, it's not as terrible as it sounds when you have a machine like our medical system, big pharma, whatever you can call it. It's not as lucrative to prevent health issues as it is to continue to give you a loaner car.
Yeah.
Right.
Unfortunately. Yeah, it's a difficult, our healthcare system is a difficult pill to swallow for sure.
Yeah. Pun intended.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So one of the things about that too is that, to kind of move away from the medical part of it and move towards the healing part of it, because that's been a focal point of what you do, I believe, because in the ways that you fundraise, a lot of them have to do with healing modalities, right? Whether it be pedal for the cause or contrast therapy, walks and marathons and such. But one of the things that I think about that may be unique in your journey, or that you might have some insight to, that is very true and identifiable with many people in your position, whether they're widows or widowers, is that it's difficult to understand from a faith perspective when you're going through an incredibly difficult time what that lesson is. And everybody's times are relative to their own. I certainly used to have a scale for trauma. I no longer have that because it's relative. But one of the things that I've started to realize, or begin to want to know more about, is something that I'm interested on your perspective. And that is that, in the broad scheme of things, if you're talking like in the biblical sense, like I've never had to walk through a desert for 40 years or wait at the bottom of a mountain for 6 years. But my patience wears thin in sometimes understanding the difficulties that I have encountered and where that lesson lies. Have you found any solace or lessons from this tragedy that have helped you get through or helped you push through things or that you've been able to share with others?
Honestly, it's been a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about faith? During Kyle's cancer journey, I did have faith that I didn't think he was going to die. Whether it was I was naive or my brain was protecting itself. I was convinced he was going to live, and I think again he would have if he gotten that treatment sooner. And there's a lot of things that happened during his treatment that I believe God orchestrated. How he got the drug into his body, all my connections from my past. It was wild how everything went down. But I struggle with faith. I struggle with why.
Mm-hmm.
I struggle with why it happened to us, why our family, and then now the aftermath. So we're experiencing the aftermath after the aftermath, which is, it's difficult. My kids are now, and I are now in the rubble. We're in the backside of things, and it's extremely difficult to navigate moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
So, the faith piece wavers a little bit because I question why. Well, it doesn't make sense.
Especially with the ages of your children, right?
Correct. Right. And like you want to talk about, what I've learned or maybe, and I think that my story has helped others because I've been public. Because after I went on your show,
sure,
as some of you may or may not know, I started my own podcast called Yes We Can, and to bring people on to share their stories along with sharing ours.
Mm-hmm.
To talk about people that have gone through pain and turned it into purpose. But it's difficult to see the lesson right now. I mean, I'm in a spot where I don't really understand. It doesn't make sense to me right now. And then now why we're struggling, it's the aftermath and why it's, it's everyone's like, oh, it's going to get better. And it's like, it's not getting better.
Yeah. Well, again, I'll speak to some of my own challenges. And I would just say that over this last year, I have had a whirlwind of changes, more so in the last year than I have in the other 40 I've been on this planet, for sure. Part of that and part of what I've been able to acknowledge is that even during the uptick, there's a reset. There's resets. There's times of deep remorse or deep depression, or as I shed things, I liken it to like doing a cleanse in your body. And when you do that, you break out, right? Because it's all the toxins are leaving your body. And so in an attempt to have clearer skin, sometimes we have worse skin blemishes and these
Mm-hmm.
things. And I look at kind of like my emotional energy and my soul as the same type of thing, like in an attempt to cleanse it or create a soft and safe place within myself for myself. A lot of times these things are pulled out
Mm-hmm.
and they drag me back down.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to then write things down and remember, like, okay, when I was feeling this way before, this is why. How did I get out of it? What did I do? And I mention that because I know that you have gone through some waxing and waning, especially in this last year.
Mm-hmm.
Have you found ways to cope? Are you still coping? And I ask this, please only answer what you're comfortable with. But the reason I ask this is because for me in my journey, in describing what I'm going through, at times I think it has seemed as if I'm trying to teach others or give a perspective that I may not have a full handle on myself as I create this journey. But in actuality, I'm trying to speak it out into the universe and talk to anybody who's watching, listening, so that it's relative and that maybe someone else can gain help from it as I gain awareness. So do you have things that you're more aware of now when they hit you or when they pull you back in?
Yeah. And I mean, to be vulnerable is, that's how you connect with people and help others. And so you asked if I'm coping. I mean, yeah, I'm coping with everything going on. Like I said, it's been a difficult year.
Yeah.
Which basically, what my therapist has described is basically delayed grief. So right after Kyle passed away, I kept fundraising in a big way. We raised $1 million in 2 years for Kyle's doctor.
Yeah.
And it was a big endeavor and we accomplished it. And then I started that podcast and life was great. Things were going smoothly. And then winter hit, and it's almost like all of a sudden the grief just came down hard. And so I feel like I'm grieving now more than I have in 2.5 years out. So as far as coping goes, I see a therapist, and I'm in a widows group. And I'm doing the best I can day by day to parent these kids by myself, but it's not easy.
Sure.
By any means. It's not easy at all. Because there isn't really room or space for me to have time to grieve. Because I have my kids 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Except for when they're at camp.
Yeah.
Or I have a sitter.
Well, and that's kind of, I think, that's something that I had to learn to navigate too, is understanding like the difference of like feeling your emotions and getting them out versus a distraction. In your case, you don't really have a choice, right? Like you're not able to choose between being distracted or not. You are constantly distracted as a single parent with 3 very small children, right? And so I think that's difficult, because when you think about in terms of relationships, for example, just in general, it's often said that, or like widely viewed, that men take longer to get over a breakup because our tendency is dive into work, dive into the gym, distract. And sometimes women move on quicker because they're able to sit within their feelings, feel everything, get it out, and move on. And there's a lingering effect when you're unable to do that. In your case, I think is unique because even if you chose to sit with your feelings, you've been unable to, right? How does that play out in your mind? Like, when you talk to your therapist, do you have a plan to do that? Because there's definitely other individuals that are facing hardship in different ways that just simply can't carve out the time.
Yeah.
Because we don't know when that's going to hit us. We don't know when those feelings are going to hit us. So maybe you say, okay, every Tuesday I'm going to take 2 hours to go on a walk, but maybe only every other Thursday you feel down.
Right.
And so then it's hard to, like, you don't want to go drum up those feelings when they're not within you.
Right.
So how have you kind of scoped that out or dealt with that?
Well, mine's been constant. So I've had constant. It's been a constant thing really most of this year so far. And so I just take it day by day and try to take the wins when there's wins, and try to convince myself that it's not going to last forever. Okay. Because everyone keeps telling me it's not going to last forever. And I'm like, okay, it's hard for me to really fathom and digest the fact that we went through all that we went through, 17 months of his cancer. It was a nightmare in every way. And then him passing and, going through that first year and a half, I guess numb. I don't know what was happening that first year and a half, but.
Or in action mode as a mother, right?
In action mode, exactly. And then now is when it's all hitting and it feels like our world's coming down on us. It's hard for me to fathom that. And so I have to take it day by day and just try to navigate life with these 3 kids one day at a time. And it's not easy, it's definitely not easy. And I've had to put some things aside, pause some things for now to try to focus on my kids and try to get through this period, which has been difficult because I'm a doer and I like to achieve things. And so, it's been difficult to take things day by day and to pause things, because when you pause things, my work, my personal life, it does make me, there's more room in my brain to think about things.
Yeah.
So there is room to feel those emotions. But I try to push them away because it's easier to do that. But when there's more time.
You think there's subconscious habits built to defend your emotions?
I'm sure.
Because one thing I've noticed just in the time we've been speaking today is that when you talk about the pain that you're feeling, you describe it as us. You say it's the world's coming down on us, it's caving in on us, as you and your other 3 children.
Yeah.
But when you describe what the action items are to move away from that, you say I. Is it difficult to isolate yourself in the pain rather than share it with your children?
Yeah.
Meaning that, is there really any way to understand how they're feeling versus your feeling, or why is there not a separation when you speak that way about it?
That's a good question. I say us just because I know that it affects our family. I just mean our family, but it's affecting them differently than it's affecting me for sure. And I don't know. Everyone's like, "How are your kids doing?" I'm like, "They're fine. I don't know. They're kids. They're 8, 6, and 4.
Yeah.
They lost their dad. They went through traumatic experience, and now I'm struggling as a mother with all the grief. So I don't. My 4-year-old acts up all the time. I don't know. Is it because he's a boy, or is it because of what we've gone through? My 8-year-old has a mind of her own, and she's a little bit sassy. Well, she's kind of always been a little bit sassy, but is it escalated because of the situation,
or just because of natural growing? Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but yeah, I do use us only because it's not just me.
Okay.
I'm not the only one that's navigating through this. We're a team. We have to be.
Sure.
It's me, my 3 kids, navigating this. And yes, I'm the leader, I'm the mom, but they're affected by everything. And so that's why I say us and this year, because, it's our family.
Sure. I was just curious, and because I know that I've done that in the past, is like paint with a broad brush.
Yeah.
In order not to feel my feelings.
Yeah.
So deeply. So wasn't a question in a way that was meant to be accusatory, just asking.
No, and I
like how you
noticed
deal with
that.
it.
I noticed that too, that I say us.
Yeah.
I've noticed that.
Well, I can tell you, at least as a former little boy, because I was one up until about 16 months ago, that, yeah, we're a little more difficult. We're going to act out. We push boundaries. The cool thing about little boys is that while they break things and hurt themselves a lot, emotionally, we're pretty simple as humans. So like, I remember as my sons are growing up, it was like a big difference of like something would happen or break or whatever. I'm like, "Hey, did you do this?" And they'd be like, "No." And usually really simple, just like, "Dude, come on. Did you do this?" "Yeah, I did it." "Okay." Whereas little girls, I think you're in for a mental battle there, an emotional one for many years to come, right? You were a little girl at one time, right?
I was.
You were like that? Sassy? Isn't she a little bit like yourself? Is that your mini?
Well, she's my
Cora?
mini, although she's my mini, the oldest.
Yeah.
Although my dad said I wasn't as sassy when I was younger.
You developed sass over the years.
Correct.
Okay.
Apparently.
Yeah. All right. Well, sometimes as individuals, we have like certain defenses.
Yeah.
That we have to do. Mine was always words. I always used my words to defend myself. So I don't know that I had sass, but I certainly had very short emotional fuse.
Yeah.
Right. And that I viewed that as some kind of defense mechanism, when in actuality, like, it's anybody who's done any work, it's like sees right through that stuff right away. Right. So as you're going through this, I know that we talked a little bit before you came on today, just to talk about preparation. Like, where are you at? Are you ready to do this? And because you have taken a hiatus from your own show, right? And from what you described to me, that was to try and gather your thoughts, get things together, and just being a parent. Like, it's hard to break away. Have you gone on a discovery for newfound purpose overall in life? Like, where is that part? Because one of the things that you said about not having time to process emotions, it must be difficult to have time to figure out what your next move is, let alone have a linear plan for moving forward, right?
Yeah.
Is that something that, how do you get through that? How do you deal with that? Because it can't be easy, right?
No, I'm dealing currently, trying to figure out what is my next move. What do I want to do? When the kids go back to school this summer, it's been Camp Mom, pretty much. I have my kids in a few different things, but they've been my focus. But yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out. And did I think that I would know by now? Yeah. Did I think I'd be through this by now? Oh yeah.
Mhm.
But I'm not. I'm still working through it and still trying to figure that out. So yeah, it's the whole thing is difficult. I mean, it's, you know, losing your spouse is one of the most stressful things that you can ever go through. And then
I shake in agreement, not because I know, but just because I empathize for you.
Yeah. Like it's like Google it. Most stressful events that happen in your life. And then with these 3 kids and no family around, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah, you're here pretty much solo, right? With St. Louis area.
Correct.
Everybody's kind of
correct.
both sides of the family are out
Yeah.
of state.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's all these questions that swirl in my mind, you know, all these decisions that I can make or not make, you know, and I'm trying not to make any rash decisions.
Sure.
Yeah, just trying to, again, it's a day by day thing. And
Is there part of you that feels bound by having to make sure that your decisions are not only best for you, but best for your kids, that prevents you from making decisions? In other words, like a pre-buyer's remorse. Sometimes in my decision making, it's difficult for me to pick a path for fear that that's the wrong path, rather than just picking a path, walking that path and living with it and correcting it on the way. I sometimes stand at the crossroads for far too long.
Yeah.
Because I have a fear of what my collateral damage might be if I choose this.
Right.
Now, one thing I've tried to do over the last several months, especially, but over the last year or so, is whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, pick a path, choose a direction, fail forward, and deal with the rocks and the bumps and the bears in the woods and whatever else might be on that path as it comes. In other words, letting go and just moving forward. How does that play out in your mind?
It's interesting you say that, because I wanted to approach 2025. So I turned 40 in November.
Okay.
And I wanted to approach this 40th year of life, 2025, letting go. That was literally the term I would use and say, I'm going to just let go this year, let go of control. And that's been difficult. It's been difficult to let go of control. Yeah, what was the original question?
When you're at a crossroads, you talked a lot about decisions.
Yeah, decisions, right.
You thought you'd have these things figured out.
Yeah.
But from my understanding and where you're at a crossroads for the last several months.
Yeah.
Where's the hang up on picking a path? Is it the duty of being a mother? Where's it at?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah. It's okay not to know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I don't know still about myself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just trying to feel better, like feel more like myself before I make any decisions, because they say don't make any big decisions.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like the chicken or the egg. What comes first, right? Like.
Yeah, because will you feel better working through the experience, or do you have to wait to feel better to have the experience?
That's the question.
Yeah. I was clarifying the chicken and egg for the people at home.
Okay.
As a health and wellness coach,
yeah,
and someone who understands a lot of healing, whether they be physical or mental modalities, better than probably most, I would think, just like myself, let me point this onto me so that I'm not making assumptions. For me, I know the better choice is to move forward, whether I'm ready or not, and that my actions will create my energy. My actions will create my happiness or my sustainability. But as a human, it's difficult for me to make that choice.
Right.
It's difficult for me to roll out of bed and do the push-ups I don't want to do. It's difficult for me to have the conversations I don't want to have. But there's, just as if you've experienced and we've all experienced, there's such a huge relief after we do that.
Do you get out of bed and do push-ups?
Often. Not every day, but more often than not. I think I read somewhere a few years ago that, like, if you can do 25 consecutive push-ups as a man, you have whatever percentage less likelihood of having a heart attack.
There you go.
Right? And as a guy with a bad heart,
Yeah.
I have a longevity plan that I need to execute, right?
Yeah.
So with if everything was perfect, the world was, there was no consequences for any choice that you made. What's the direction that you felt like you should go in the most over the last few months?
Another really great question. Without any consequences, I think we'd stay on the path we're on. Stay in St. Louis, keep my kids in the school they're in, start my podcast up again. I am doing a little bit of fundraising. I'm not doing it as big as I was before, but get back to myself, the things I was doing before.
So when you say start your podcast, because you said that without hesitation,
Yeah.
do you feel your purpose is to spread the word and continue to heal and help others heal?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe, just an opinion, writing out those steps and then working that backwards,
Yeah.
whether you're ready or not,
Right.
may be beneficial.
Maybe.
Okay. Just asking.
And it's a lot easier said than done,
Of
right?
course it
Like
is.
you ask, as a health and wellness coach, it's easy for me to look at someone else's life and what they're eating and doing with their life and say, oh, well, you actually need to change this, this, and this.
Yeah, why are you drinking a gallon of milk a day? That's not good for you, right? Like that kind of stuff.
Well, and right.
Yeah.
Or exercise wise or stress wise, it's a lot easier for me to look at other people's lives and say, these are the changes that you should make, that will help you versus my own life.
Mm-hmm.
I think
That's for everybody.
correct.
That's for everybody. One of the things that the reason I started this show is because I was going through all this mental chaos. And when we first met too, like one of the biggest things that I think is continuously exchanged with everybody on a regular basis, no matter where you're at in a relationship, is relationship advice. People always exchange relationship advice. And it's strange how that reverberates because the advice that's given is nearly always the same, but the advice that's taken is never the same, right? We always think we're the exception to the rule in those experiences, like this experience that you're having with purpose. But what's funny about that is that once the action takes place, time and understanding sets in. And then when we're giving the advice, we give it very nonchalantly and almost forget how difficult it was to take that advice.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I found is helpful and that maybe comes away from this conversation for both of us is that I no longer take advice because advice causes me to change my trajectory based on other people's opinions, but rather I take things under advisement so that I can see things from a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that because I've long since felt like you knew your purpose, but I've been in a position where I've known my path and known my purpose, but couldn't figure out the mental block to start walking it. And I still struggle with that stuff. It's not easy all the time. And the other thing that I've learned is that I don't even take things under advisement from individuals I would not switch places with, right? If I'm asking relationship advice from like 4 single dudes who are miserable, or maybe 2 of them are married and miserable and 2 are single, why would I listen to what they say about how to fix a relationship? So in the same sense, when you're speaking with individuals about your purpose or your mission in life, your direction, I wonder how many of those individuals you'd actually trade places with versus what you actually feel and know, but are blocked and moving forward on.
It's interesting. It's a great point. And I wouldn't say I'm getting advice from people. I think people are trying to empathize. And people that have walked ahead of me, other widows, say it's they go through this.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. All I can say is it's a difficult thing.
Yeah. But you're processing it differently than you used to. You're
Yeah.
thinking about it more deeply.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've been forced to.
Yeah.
I think that for the first year and a half, I didn't.
Sure.
I thought I was done. I thought I had processed it and was good to go. And it turns out that's not the case.
Well, yeah, but and then just in talking about it now, and maybe you haven't had this in depth of a conversation about it in a while.
I haven't.
So thank you for being vulnerable and having that conversation with me today. Because one thing that I've noticed that you probably certainly noticed when we first started talking a year ago in these ways is that body language, right?
Yeah.
I never was able to sit still because I was uncomfortable having difficult conversations.
Yeah.
You've been more fidgety than I've ever seen you.
Have I been?
Yeah, yeah.
That's funny.
And sometimes what I've noticed and come to understand is that when our inner child or our trauma self is triggered or uncomfortable, we tend to fidget and move. And
well, and mine's not, I wouldn't say mine's my inner child. Mine's the trauma that I've recently been through. The fact that
yours is very fresh, which is why it's hard to probably walk through it because you may not have even been able to process all of it yet. Like you said, you've had all these distractions.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, time heals all, but in actuality, like what time have you actually had to heal?
And who says how much time?
Yeah, it could take years, right? And then there's still rushes. I mean, I lost my dog 3 years ago and sometimes think about him. So I can't even fathom what you must go through with. It's not as if there was a breakup.
Right.
That you can rekindle or rejoin. So I once remember telling you that at some point you might need to change the narrative of your message. That was not a legitimate statement for me to make because I don't have the understanding that you have. And one of the things that I didn't take into consideration when trying to give you advice or help fix something for someone I care about was that I've not walked in your shoes. And so oftentimes, like I say, when people give advice, it's like, advice on what? If I haven't experienced there, you wouldn't trade places. How can that be relatable? And so that's why I wanted to revisit this today at the 1 year anniversary is because I think that the only way for any of us to understand what you're going through is to have you explain it and to have you walk through it. And maybe in that explanation, you could find a path.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I remember you saying, maybe it shouldn't, maybe a narrative should change. And I don't focus so much on being a widow. And, but the thing is that it's so big.
Yeah.
It's where I'm living. And so it is my perspective and where I'm coming from and on the forefront of my mind. And
always will be. Something I didn't understand is that just like someone who was formerly an addict, I consider myself an alcoholic still because I had issues with drinking at 21. And so I always think of myself as an alcoholic, even though I haven't had issues with alcohol since I was in my 20s. So the part that I didn't take in consideration and I apologize for is that no matter where you're at in life, the fact that you're a widow will always remain true, even if you remarry. So that was something that I want to apologize for saying, maybe you should expand your narrative because I have no understanding of what that means.
That's okay.
In your shoes.
Your apology. And the thing is, no one else does. No one. And that is something that when other people, maybe think I should be over it by now or have commented, or now it's, maybe now it's time you date, someone will say that it's like, unless you've been in my shoes, there's no time, like no one else can put a timestamp on when healing's done and when you're ready to do this and ready to move on and ready, it's no one else can do that unless you've been there. And that's why these widow groups are so important.
Yeah.
And I think people sharing their stories, whether it be a widow or someone else, sharing your stories so you can relate to other people and people know they're not alone. I think it's so important to be vulnerable in that way, because unless you are a cancer survivor or a cancer patient or a widow, you don't know.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to project and say what you think You're right, when you're not wearing those shoes.
Yeah. Well, because myself, unlike many others, we want to help, right? And
Right.
so when we think we're helping, one of the things that I've learned is that in actuality, oftentimes when a friend or a loved one is describing their pain, maybe the best thing we can do as a support system is to say, I'm sorry that you're going through that. And how can I create a safe space
Well,
for
yeah.
you to exist in without judgment, that you can feel supported in your process?
And
Right?
I would say listening is huge. And then actually being there, physically being a
Present.
support,
Okay.
present. Because oftentimes when something big happens, even having a baby, everyone's excited. They're throwing showers. They throw you gifts and food right after you have a baby.
But you're changing the diapers.
Right. But then it quiets down,
Mhm.
right? And then that's when the tough stuff happens. And it's the same thing with any other trauma. The trauma happens. People are involved. They're helping out, and then time moves on, and everyone moves on with their life.
Except you.
Because exactly
Right.
because this is our life.
Right.
And I knew that was going to happen when everything was going down with Kyle. There was a lot that happened. And I remember thinking and even saying, like, other people's lives are going to move on. And then we're going to be here left in the rubble.
Mhm.
And it's true. And so I would say if you're wanting to support somebody that's struggling, whatever trauma or whatever they're going through, it's actually being there, being present, going over to their house, being with them, because it can be isolating. At least from widow's perspective, it's isolating, and
Yeah.
surely cancer patients feel isolated. And I use those two because those are the closest, the two things that are closest to my life.
Mhm.
And I remember my husband, wondering why people weren't stopping by as well when he had cancer. He felt very alone oftentimes.
Yeah. Well, because maybe sometimes, from a perspective that I can understand, I'll say this. I often don't think of isolation if you have a house full of children
Right.
or people, right? But as a parent, I can tell you that having a conversation on a consistent basis with my 10-year-old isn't the same as having
Right.
just moments of silence within another adult,
Correct.
right? And so maybe that's where there's some misconstrued understanding of your situation is, well, you have a house full of laughter and joy at all times because you have all these children running around. But other parents can probably understand that you have a laughter full of added stress and blessings that it's sometimes difficult to deal with.
Well,
And
and
you're not able to be in,
attitudes,
yeah,
and sass and demands. There's constant demands.
yeah.
Luckily, there's one gal, a friend of mine, who is kind of like
I say gal. I like that you use that word.
gal, yeah. Who's been super open. I've been super open with about this journey and kind of where I've been. And we've done tons of play dates with our kids. She has us over all the time. Like, she has been someone that I've relied on, and she's been there and like shown up. And that's what I think people need to realize is you just got to show up.
Mhm.
That's
like 80% of the battle for a lot of things,
for
right?
a lot of things is just showing up.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Even coming here today. I mean, I was a little nervous about coming on today because I haven't been on in a while, and I haven't openly talked about this in a while. But we discussed and decided, let's go ahead and do this. I'm open to being vulnerable. I think it'll hopefully it'll help others, and maybe help others realize, the aftermath of these type of situations and what people are going through, men or women, that are going through.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's helped you today?
Sure.
Genuinely?
Yeah.
To talk about it again in a way that's, I mean, you can't take it back, right? It's out there now. You're speaking about it.
Yeah.
And so,
Does it help you understand kind of where I've been?
yeah. Well, and I think not only does it help me understand where you've been, but I'm grateful for the difference in the conversation. It's cool because, um, like, let's call it 365 days or whatever. there's a difference in how I'm receiving your information
Mm-hmm.
because of the things I've learned.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel there's a definitive change in the way you're delivering your message
Mm-hmm.
because of the things you've been through and learned.
Mm-hmm.
So all in all, it's really incredible what a difference a year makes,
Mm-hmm.
you know, besides just the height of your kids. There's been a lot of growth internally in a lot of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what, and we discussed this prior, and I know that there may not be a direct answer for this, but what's next? Even if there is no plan, what's that plan, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I figured out a while ago that sometimes not having a plan is the plan.
Yeah.
In other words, like, what are you gonna do next week? Well, I don't have a plan. Okay, well, let's sit down and figure out what your goal is and then work backwards, right? So
Right.
what's next for Kira?
That's a good question. I think I answered you this morning. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know what's next.
Yeah.
I'm kind of waiting to see what God puts into play.
Mm-hmm.
I need something for sure. My kids go back to school in about a month, so I have about a month of mommy day camp
Mm-hmm.
to go. But I do want.
Have you given yourself a mental finish line because of that date?
You know what? No, but maybe I will.
I don't know that you should.
No.
I feel as if having that timeline, because you've said that timeline a couple of times, not just today, but other times. I wonder if having that timeline is actually like a subconscious block
Yeah,
on your ability to take action.
maybe.
And I only offer that opinion because I think that I've experienced rules, linear timelines, and guidelines that I've given myself
Mm-hmm.
that are imaginary, and it's blocked me from making progress.
Yeah.
Because the way you describe it is, I got another month to figure it out. Now, whether it's a good thing that you have a month to figure it out, or a bad thing that you only have a month to figure it out, either way, there's a linear timeline in your brain that you may or may not be addressing on a daily basis.
Yeah. I just think in a month I'll have this space.
When they're at school.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Let's say that in a month you have that space, and you have that space during school, but you don't have it during, now they have like break every 3 weeks. You don't have it during fall break, winter break, spring break, and you don't have it again next summer. Do you think that 145 days or whatever it is that they're in school is enough time for you to figure out something that's weighed on your mind for 2.5 years?
I'm not sure. I mean, it's every day. It's every day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm processing. We're processing. I'm processing.
Yeah, you are processing.
So I just think to myself, when they're in school, I will have more time to do that.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, and it's
Okay.
not meant to be poignant or combative anyway, but as a physical fitness trainer, if I told you that I can't make tomorrow's class because I have a lot on my plate, but I plan to come next week, and then next week I say, long morning, I'm going to have to wait till next week. What would you tell me as a physical trainer?
In my mind, I'd be thinking you're making up excuses because you don't want to come.
Right. And there's always going to be a reason not to do something, right?
Right.
What would your alternative be if there was no space or room that you had to do mommy camp and you didn't have any reasons not to start tomorrow walking a path to, say, building your own brand?
Can you rephrase that question?
Sure. Can I use it in a sentence?
Can I go phone a friend?
We've talked a lot about why you don't have space
Right.
to figure things out.
Right.
How might you give yourself space now with the obstacles that you're facing now to figure things out? Where can you make that time? Where can you carve that out? Is it 9:30 to 10:30 at night when your kids are asleep? Where does that space live? And how can you start working on things a little bit at a time tonight, tomorrow morning?
Yeah.
Does that space exist in your life?
Well, my kids are about to be done with camp, so not really.
No, there's no time between time. And again, not to be combative, I'm just trying to talk through it to figure it out. There's no time between the time that they're peaceful little heads around the pillow versus when they're awake.
Well, I go to bed right after they go to bed because I'm mentally
I feel, I do the same.
exhausted.
Yeah.
By the end of the day.
Right. But if I told you, again, just because I'm really wanting to explore this with you because I find it intriguing. I don't have time to drink 2 gallons of water a day.
You can only drink 1 gallon's good.
Okay. I don't have time to drink a gallon of water a day.
Yeah. You got to make time.
For all things.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I know you. I can tell your thing. And the reason I bring that up and the reason I say those things is because I find that expressing myself and talking through other people's challenges helps me by trying to create analogies or a different understanding to explain my question to you. Sometimes helps me view things differently in my perspective. So in actuality, the reason I started this show initially was a selfish one in the sense that I wanted to find peace. And the individuals like yourself that I invite onto my show are people who I have admiration for because from my perspective, you've been very courageous through this time to even get up out of bed and keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if nothing else, I hope that you have a great deal of pride for what you've been able to go through over the last 2 years, given the circumstance you've gone through. No matter how other people view those things, it's the most difficult thing you've had to overcome. And you've gotten up and been a mom every day since then. So I hope that that brings you some peace and some self-pride that you're doing a hell of a job and doing something that a lot of people couldn't.
Thank you. Well, thank you for saying that. And people do ask me how I do it. And my response is, how can I, what options do I have?
Yeah. But a lot of people create options, create excuses.
Right. But to get up and be a mom every day, that's what I got to do.
Yes. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I had a mom that didn't get up and be a mom every day. So even with something that you think is very matter of fact or that you don't have a choice in, you make a choice every day to be a mom. So once you find that clarity to make choices in other parts of your life, you'll be able to change that trajectory and no one else will. So don't ever downplay or take nonchalantly that it's just a matter of fact that you just have to get up and be a mom. There's a lot of moms. People always think about the dads. There's a lot of moms that don't get up every day and be a mom. You're already a pretty far step ahead of most people. Right?
When you put it like that, then yeah.
Yeah. So how I like to end the show nowadays is I like to describe back to you something that I've taken away from your perspective that will or has made an impression on me. And what I'm taking away from today's conversation with you is that there's no matter how much people want to say, here's the 5 stages of grieving, there's no linear process. And that it's okay to repeat step 2 and 3 even after you've had step 5. Is it 3 stages or 5 stages of grief that they talk about?
It's 5 stages.
Is it 5? Okay.
And like you said, it's not linear.
No. But it's often described as linear, right? We have the relief stage and the acceptance and all that stuff. It goes all over.
It's all over.
So I'm grateful for you sharing your vulnerability in that and hopefully helping others. You've helped me understand that it's okay to repeat some of those steps and not have it go away, right?
Right.
And then lastly, I would like to ask you, is there a mantra, a saying, a phrase that you repeat in your own head that keeps you going when you don't feel like getting up and being a mom?
That's a good question. I mean, I would say one day at a time.
One day at a time. Well, it's a good one. So thank you so much
Thank you.
for coming back on a year later. And I hope your one day at a time tomorrow is better than today, and so on and so forth, and continues to be better each day.
Thank you.
Very welcome. And thank you all for joining us for episode 2, year 1 celebration. And we will see you next time.